In this video, we're going to talk about AVCT. It has been a volatile stock that attracted a large number of people who either want to get in the stock over the past weeks and months, or who want to get out of it. A lot of speculations have been said and applied to the company since then, and many are still wondering what lies ahead. In this video, we're going to take a fresh look at AVCT and see if we should put more capital into the company. As always, if you appreciate what I do, please consider to drop a like, subscribe to my channel, and check out the links down in the description. Before we begin, I'd just like to make a brief disclaimer, which could clarify things. What is presented in this video are going to be my opinion and my interpretation on how things are and should be. They're not investment advice and should be watched for entertainment purposes only. They can help you make more educated decisions, but shouldn't be used as the sole material for decision making. Most of my analysis is done in the immediate past or just a few days before the uploading. And the price action that you see on charts might not reflect like what you see in the video anymore, but they can still be used as tools to analyze how the past trends influence the future price actions. Also, the analysis will try to cover the stock as comprehensively as possible, and it'll talk about more factors than just the latest news or price actions. For instance, we might talk about the financials, the stock market trends, the long-term perspectives, and the shareholder behaviors. These might affect the timing, the quantity, and the actual decision regarding the stock. As most of my viewers are watching the videos for the first time, it is important for them to see all these factors in every one of my videos. So with that being said, let's begin with today's topic. Simply put, AVCT is a cloud-based service provider that wants to profit from the bandwagon of work environment virtualizations and to facilitate the communication in the virtual environment. With that being said, the sector does have its potentials, but it also has its pitfalls. Most services in the sector tends to be either free or comes with a freemium option. People tend to mold their habits around the payment options and not the other way around. For corporate clients, their demands are often met with applications from bigger fish and may have the means to provide additional support and customizations, something that the small companies cannot always afford to do. Also, larger corporations provide a layer of reliability for the corporate clients, as they may trust these platforms to be here to stay. The last point is a key factor that might explain why AVCT hasn't been as successful as it hoped for during the past few years. And in summer of 2022, as they've decided to sell the company, this decision has only reinforced that assertion that people might have about AVCT. With that being said, the current attraction of AVCT is the possibility to be sold to a generous buyer who has money to dole out in exchange of AVCT's maybe technology, but especially the client base. So this expectation for a large buyout justifies the interest the traders have towards AVCT, whether it's reasonable or not. So over the past few years, the stock price of AVCT continued to slowly slide to lower levels, currently hanging around 96 cents. We previously mentioned how important it is to see that AVCT can stabilize itself, and in today's trading session, it partially proved this. It proved that it has the capacity to sort of get back on track, which is always a good thing. We have to remember that AVCT as a company has its time ticking at a worrisome rate at that. So this is why additional caution is advised when trading. Given how the price action is at the moment, I wouldn't even say that the downward tendencies have been slowed. It's not only been slowed, but almost halted, since it's only been down by 2% over the past 5 days, and it's been down by 27% over the past month. In other words, the sell-off seems to have halted, all things considered, and that is a good thing. The long-term price action of AVCT has been under duress as well. The company went public in the worst of the time around March of 2020, as the world economies began to shut down, causing a major stock crash. Although the share price for many other titles climbed back afterwards, I would say that, AVCT wasn't that lucky. During the boom years of 2020 and 2021, AVCT gained back some of the initial losses, but it wasn't enough to attract additional traders in a sustained manner, and that the capital it raised wasn't able to cover the expenses. Looking back, the company tried to succeed in a highly competitive sector, and it wasn't able to sustain its own presence. And then unfavorable market timing accelerated that downturn. Looking ahead, AVCT is trying to sell itself, and much like the short-term price action, the road ahead largely depends on how well or how soon the buyout happens, if it happens at all. The online footprint of AVCT is relatively basic. It is mostly made of the company's PR releases, the occasional mentions from shareholders on the online forums expressing their hopes that things will go their way, and various speculations about who the buyer should be. What we can gather from all this is that the company is getting as much interest as it should, and it can get pretty meager at times. But it's also not unexpected for a small company that has been sold. There is very likely a buyer with whom negotiations are on their way. The fact that no one is officially announcing anything might suggesting that the negotiations are not going very well for AVCT, or that they simply want to prepare a surprise for the shareholders. I think that the first scenario is far more realistic. Regarding the macroeconomic factor, it is affecting AVCT perhaps more than how it affects other companies. The quantity of money flowing in the financial system has been greatly dwindled, partially due to the end of QE, looming recession, the capital flight to safe havens, and the conflicts around the world. So those factors affect AVCT in one way or another, the biggest one being how much capital buyers have on hand as a result. So let's also take a look at the company's financials. In terms of cash, the amount has been dwindling, and it's only being kept at the level because they've been selling their shares for the most part. The sale of its other business back in late 2021 saw the financial statements changing significantly. It didn't really impact the financial positions per se, but it certainly affected the financial ratios and how much debt they may be able to take on, if any at all. So, in terms of liabilities, there's about 22 million of current liabilities maturing within a year. This would mean that on top of the operating losses, there will be at least $22 million out of the company's account within the next 12 months, suggesting that if the sale takes longer than a year, AVCT might be forced to go through another round of dilutions. And regarding the profitability, the revenue has been keep going down, and this is likely a reaction because people believe that services might be cut off or discontinued once the transactions are completed, so they might as well just choose another service provider. Overall, I believe that time has been ticking for AVCT, who needs to find a buyer and to avoid being liquidated. Otherwise, it may face like a complete loss of people's faith in the company. There's around 35% of institutional buyers, normally suggesting that the long-term trust in this company and into this company's like operations and potentials, but in this case, I think they're just hoping for a generous buyout. Given that AVCT continued its sell-off, I think that the retail traders are jumping off the ship in great numbers. But institutional buyers probably remain in place, not because they're more optimistic, but just because they may not care enough to move. Now, regarding its major catalyst, it's the short squeeze. They have a huge position of they have a huge number of short position that is played against AVCT, and currently around 840,000 shares are being shorted. This is significant, but I would say that it is an indication that there could be some potential for a short squeeze, but it's going to come as a secondary reason. after, like whether AVCT can be sold. One will bring the other and not the other way around. So regarding whether you should be buying AVCT, I would say that if you want to buy AVCT, you would be buying it purely for the stock market movements. The company's fundamentals are nothing to really, to nothing to really swear by. And based on the action, like the price action dynamics, I would recommend to enter in a position with AVCT if it gets closer to 80 cents on a first hand, and if it can start to go back up for at least 2 to 3 trading days. The upcoming week is very critical to determine whether an entry can be made if the stock keeps its upward tendencies. I would recommend to come in between 0.5 to 1% of your company's portfolio.